Let's switch gears now and speak on some governance-related issues. So Nigeria's inflation rate has dropped by 0.37% to 17.01% year on year at the end of August from the 17.38% recorded in July. This was disclosed in the Consumer Price Index report just released by the National Bureau of Statistics. So we're going to get to break it down for you. And, you know, when I have some of these complicated figures, that is probably very difficult for the average man to break down, we bring Mr. Bismarck Rewane in. But what are the issues tonight that we want to engage Mr. Rewane? The consistent inflation decline, what does this mean? The economy, is it shaping up or not? What is the effect of this latest figure on the average man and the money in their pockets and the food on their table? The bottom line, everyone, for this conversation, what is the implications of the latest inflation rate? I'm being joined tonight by Mr. Bismarck Rewane, an economist and the CEO of the Financial Derivatives. He joins us from Lagos, Victoria Land area of Lagos. Thank you so much, Mr. Rewane. I appreciate your time. You know, I call on you, and I'm not tired of calling on you. And I thank you that you're not tired of my calls. When I have these complicated issues on my hand, you know the best way to break it down. Please break it down for us to get a sense of what it means. There is a consistent decline in the inflation rate. What does this mean?
Good evening, viewers, and thank you for having me. Inflation has two dimensions. It has its economic dimension and it has its political dimension. It is actually what inflation measures the change in prices, and it is not nominal prices. Therefore, you can have inflation declining while the prices of goods are actually increasing. So let me explain what inflation is all about. What has happened is that the basket of goods that were bought in August 2020 across the country, from Maiduguri to Lagos to Ubiaja to Uromi, all of these prices compared to the price of the basket of goods bought in these four markets, using as an example, have increased by 17.01%. This basket is about 60% made up of food and about 40% made of non-food items. So what has happened is that the price of this basket has increased, but within that basket, there are other items that are at play. There's what we call core inflation, there's what we call food inflation, and what we call non-food inflation. So generally speaking, for the past 5 months, we've had inflation decline from all the way from over 18% to about 17.01%. However, it does not mean that the price of goods have dropped by 17%. What we did is to create a synthetic basket of some products. And the synthetic basket was measured at Sura market and Oyinbo market. And the price of the goods in that basket went up by 26.1%, while the goods in the national basket went up by 17%. For example, in August last year, the price of rice was 28,000 naira a bag. In August this year, it is 27,000 naira a bag. The price of flour last year was 13,000 naira a bag at this time last year. It's 18,000 naira in August, and today it's about 21,000 naira, up by 38%. Maize was 13,000 last year, 13,000 this year in the upper regions of Nigeria. Pig milk was 195 naira for a little carton. Last year, it is now 230 naira. Coca-Cola was 100 naira this time last year. It's 150 naira this year. Cement was 2,600 last year. It's 4,000 naira this year. So the average price increase in this synthetic basket was 26.1%. While the average basket across the country, and I used four cities as examples. I used Maiduguri, Lagos, Uromi, and Ubiaja as examples to measure the basket. Now, having said that, within Nigeria, you have rural and urban inflation. Rural inflation and urban inflation actually declined compared to last year, because don't forget, this time last year, we're just beginning to open up after the lockdown. The lockdown was in the second quarter, the opening up was in the third quarter, and August is in the third quarter. Now, the projections before now were that the price we projected that the price decline would go all the way to 16.8%, but it didn't materialize. Why? Because what are the things that are stoking inflation? There are four major things that are stoking inflation. One, the price of petrol and diesel. Two, the exchange rate. Three, the disruption and insurgency. And four, other cost push factors, including demand pull factors, including the velocity of money and the volume of money in circulation. So if we take them one by one, you will find that one, the exchange rate at this time last year was about 450 naira to a dollar. Today it is, in the parallel market, it's 560 naira to a dollar. So that has fed through into the prices. We also have the price of petrol at this time last year, because it came down marginally, it was around 125. The price of petrol now is 165, but it could actually increase after the regulation. Money supply saturation, we've had an increase in money supply and also demand pull inflation factors. Insurgency was not as bad at this time last year as it is now. All of these things have affected prices. Now, so what we now see and what we expect in the next month is that inflation is beginning to moderate, but there's a risk that we may get to a point of inflection, especially because of the shortage of some products and the factors which I just talked about. I don't know if that explains that in the first step, Sean.
Absolutely. You've been able to give us a sense of what it directly means. And as our viewers are able to see those materials and those products in the market, they can relate easily with it. And you've given us examples of this product and how their prices are varied within this period that you have mentioned. Let's get a sense of some of the, you've given us the quick facts that we need to know, but give us a sense of, are there any risk involved in the aftermath of these latest figures? Do we need to be careful? Can we maintain this decline?
Well, let me, first and foremost, you are actually beginning to tread into the political consequences of inflation. But first of all, let me say something. If you compare the global trend and the regional trend with what's happening in Nigeria, they seem to be similar. And to that extent, the UK announced today the highest rate of inflation since 2008 at about 2.3%. Now, but the US announced a slight decline from 5.4 to 5.3, and in China we saw a decline. In South Africa, amongst the African countries that we view, 6 of them, 3 increased and 3 declined. I think in Ghana there was an increase to 9.5%. So we are not totally out of the trend, the global trend or the African trend. However, at 17.3, when the African average is 8%, Nigeria's inflation rate is twice that of the sub-Saharan Africa. The global inflation is about 4%. Nigeria is 4 times higher than the global rate of inflation. So there's work to be done. But when you break it down, in Nigeria, for example, the highest rate of inflation was in Kogi State, where it's at 23.4%. And the lowest rate of inflation was in Kwara State, which are neighboring states. And that's very curious, because Kogi and Kwara are close to one another. In Kwara State, we have a rate of inflation of 14%, and in Kogi State, we have a rate of inflation of 23.4%. Something definitely is wrong there. One can only attribute this to the level of insurgency and disruption to supply flows from the Middle Belt and the North Central to these areas. The second lowest rate of inflation is in River State, which came down to 14%. And the third is Bayelsa State. River State and Bayelsa State are contiguous states. And we saw this come down. And at the same time, in the higher states, we have Bauchi State and Oyo State. Oyo State is way in the southwest, and that actually leads to some questioning as to why it's happening. Is it because of transitory or structural issues? But interestingly, what you have to understand is that the rule of the thumb is that every 1% increase in inflation increases the level of unhappiness in a country by 0.6%. So the unhappiness index, which is another proxy for misery index, increases. And if you actually compound that or juxtapose that into an unemployment factor. So when you have unemployment and inflation, those two give you the misery index. And that makes you think. So the political consequences are that even though inflation is reducing at a slow pace, we cannot afford to have unemployment increase. So that takes you back to, is the economy growing? And if it's growing, is it growing in the sectors that employ people? Yes, we are growing based on base year effects, but the growth is not inclusive. And the sector that employs the most people, agriculture, actually slowed. While trade, which employs the most informal people in the country, actually expanded. So there's work to be done in terms of inclusivity of growth, making economic indicators have an impact on the well-being of people. Because if not, you have happy statistics and unhappy people. And that is what you try to avoid in this circumstance.
Let's make it, because some of our viewers are already said, I mean, the picture that you painted about the commodities, the price of the commodity in Lagos, for example, if we can have that slide back on. Someone is already telling us that if the price of rice in Abuja, in Gariki market precisely, is over 30,000. And because this is what the average person in Nigeria can relate with, because they go to the market, you have to eat. So the question is the handling of the economy. Are things getting better? Are we hopeful of a brighter future in the nearest days, nearest future and days to come? What should we be expecting? Should we save more? Should we be optimistic? I mean, we are in the ember months already, Mr. Rewane.
Well, you see, the projections show that inflation is likely to moderate for two reasons. One, price resistance. The consumers have limited income. They have a squeeze in their income, so they are also shifting their consumption. 1 in 2 Nigerians is eating less in terms of quantity and less in terms of value and less in terms of quality than it was a year ago. So consumers are actually beginning to eat less. And in the non-food basket, 1 in 4 Nigerians is buying less. Therefore, because of price resistance and because of increase in output, because growth is beginning to increase, we are likely to see a moderation in inflation, except for the jump that is happening in September because of the exchange rate pressures and the exchange rate mechanism. So technically speaking, there's no silver bullet. You need to grow output, and also there needs to be a reduction in the leakages from the system, both in the public sector and the private sector. That is extremely important because there's lack of productivity, there are leakages, and there's also wanton corruption. So we need to bring that under control.
Let's end the program tonight, Mr. Rewane, from where we started from. In the base of that slide, you said inflation to reach point of inflection soon. I know you do a lot of projections. What in the next regime of these predictions, what do you expect?
What that means that in the month of September, you are likely to see inflation go back up to about 17.3 or 17.5.
That's
Why?
Good news.
Because most of these companies, that's the point of inflection. Most of these companies are having difficulty at this point in time getting foreign exchange. But when the foreign exchange situation stabilizes, which we expect it to happen, when I don't know, when it stabilizes, then those prices will come down again. And basically because of the resistance by consumers who are unwilling to buy at ridiculous prices. 2. 3 is that it is possible that the central bank will increase the supply of foreign exchange into the official market, and that should automatically lead to a reduction in the price of goods. So if all of these things happen at the same time, that point of inflection will not last, and we'll go back to the moderation, because the EIU says that inflation by this time next year should be as low as 12.6%, which is really going to be a dramatic view. Yeah. For Nigerian viewers, the EIU, which is an international organization, thinks that the price there will come down to 12.6 miraculously. And on the other hand, the trajectory shows that it may increase in September slightly to 17.3, 17.5, and then before it begins to moderate towards Christmas. But don't forget that during Christmas, prices also increase. So festive season effect is going to be there. And that's what it is. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Rewane. But because a younger sister of mine is getting married in December, and my family members are already saying, let's go and buy the food stuff and all that for the wedding. Is it a good idea to start buying those things now? Just on the light note before we go.
That's what we call front loading. If everybody does what you are doing, the price of goods will go higher. So all I can say, because your sister is going to get married, buy. But for those who are not getting married in December, there's no need to buy on stock. In any case, what you buy will be stolen or will get bad or perish. And the cost of keeping them in the food when they don't buy. Yeah, so that's it. So if I were you, I would just stay where I am. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Rewane. That's a lighter note, but that is the real story. The story of every Nigerian and how they relate to some of the policies of government. But thank you so much, Mr. Rewane, for giving us a sense of all these. Thank you so much indeed. Mr. Rewane, economist, and the CEO of Financial Derivatives. And that's how we end the show tonight. Many thanks, everyone, for watching. I'm sure Akimbale. Bye for now.